Viola. Great, thank you. Yeah, we have Viola with us tonight to talk about the practical tips on how to rebrand yourself in the market. A little bit of introduction for Viola. She is a project manager by the day and also a career coach. I can vouch for that. I just had quite a few sessions with her, and I could see her passion on helping other people to achieve their goal. So she's the founder of the Ride the Change Life, because I guess the name is related to her passion about motorcycle. So she's a motorbike rider as well. And originally from Italy, now called New Zealand as a home. And she has tons of experience she's gonna share with us tonight about career transition and rebranding. So now I will give the floor to Viola.
All right. Thanks, Lynn, for the kind introduction. Yeah, so much to talk about tonight. Branding is quite an open and it's a very large topic. There's so much we could get over tonight. Can you hear me? I hear a little bit of backfeed. Hopefully it's all good and you can hear me all right. Great. So there's a lot to talk about, but I tend to like practical approach, and to try and make it a little bit more engaging, I would like to just start with a few questions just to get you involved. So get your phones ready to play around with Slido a little bit, and let's dig into it. So the first thing I would like you to start thinking about is when you see, let's see if we can move on. There you go. When you see this, what do you think of? First thing that comes to mind.
It's a laptop without any branding logo.
Fantastic. Can you see the questions on Slido? I'm trying to get to the next page, but I think it's, there you go. That was an excellent question. Just type it in. Let's see if I can do it too. Right. That's great. It's a generic laptop. Perfect. Black laptop, technology, work. So it's something very non-specific, right? And that's what exactly what that picture was. But now, if I asked you the exact same question about this, what do you think about when you see this? What would you write? Right. That's great. All right, so I see a lot of keywords coming up here. Steve Jobs, so we're associating now also a person to a brand, high-end tech, recognition, branding, top-end, MacBook or Apple. So of course, the brand that we're talking about. But can you see that we're starting to add in a lot more things? Some of these things are, for example, attributes or qualities that we didn't attribute to the first one, right? And are, there you go, popular worldwide. So we're adding some qualities, some attributes that either have to do with how the brand is known or what it's known for, right? It's a high end, it's high tech. So we're attributing qualities and attributes to that object, right? So these are the first couple of things that are easy to think about when we think about what is a brand. So it's something that we associate with qualities, attributes, value, real or perceived, that is associated with that brand. But what happens when we think about branding applied to people? What is a personal brand? Let's think of it. Let's do the same exercise. I've chosen a couple of people. Hopefully they are known to everybody. Same question as before. Sorry, Lynn, I clicked around to try and change slide, but I think we're, okay, thank you so much. So what do you think of when you see Gordon Ramsay? Gordon Ramsay, like what is the first thing that comes to mind? Yeah. Yes, that's great. I look at that. That is great. There you go. Fantastic. So I'm seeing all these things popping up. Obviously, the first thing, the most voted, the most popular is chef, because obviously master chef, and that's how he branded himself. That's his profession. That's what he's known for. But as you can see, there are a lot of other things on the screen that have very little to do with cooking and a lot to do with his personality, like yelling, crazy guy, difficult, famous, passion, tough, angry. It's not just negatives, right? Passion is there, high quality is there. So we're starting to add in a lot more qualities. And what we can see easily is that we're starting to pair up aspects of his character with aspects of his profession. Now, what do we think of when we see Emma Watson? One last example. Same game. Yep. Yes. That's fantastic. Right. So as I expected, obviously the most famous character she's known for is Hermione. So Harry Potter series, and that's what we associated her with. Obviously, it's something that took over her career early on. So it's easy to think of this exercise with an actress and seeing how, even though we know she has been in many movies and many way more recent than Harry Potter, we still pair it up with that character, right? So that's the thing that she's most known for. And it's funny and interesting to see that that's still what pops up. But we can also see there's a bunch of other things. So some things we've put here are paired with that character. So loves reading, wisdom, she's intelligent. But then we have other things like she's more than an actress. She's beautiful, she's talented, she's kind. So again, we're starting to dig into personal characteristics, right? So things that have to do with her personal character and not the character she's playing, right? But yet, remember, the biggest word bumping up is still the name of her character. And again, not the most recent one. Why did I want to do and play around with these people and these characters? Because it's easy to say that when we talk about branding, our personal branding and our professional branding are more than just our role or our name or what we stand for. There's a lot that goes behind it. Sorry, Lynn, I don't seem to be able to change slide with you. Thank you so much. So a personal brand or the brand of a person can include their profession, their experience, their personality, their character, or values they stand for. We mentioned for Gordon Ramsay high quality. Talented actress is something that also came through with Emma Watson, kindness. So the reason I wanted you to play around with this game and just, start seeing what words come up is just to give you the breadth of what personal branding is and what it can encompass. It's not just your role, it goes way beyond that. So, and the one topic here that I wanted to really flesh out is how personal brand and professional brand tend to overlap. And that's okay. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you so much. So when we think of our brand, it really boils down to what are we known for? And what we want to do as we build our personal branding is to make sure that that brand encompasses our unique skills and experiences. So what makes us stand out from the crowd? The second part of the other aspects, let's say, that are less actionable directly, but we can still influence to a point, are related to perception, right? So does any of us know Gordon Ramsay or Emma Watson in person? I think it's an easy no, right? Yet we all have an opinion about them. They're public figures, they're famous people in a way. So we all have a perception of them. They all have a reputation, good or bad. The reason I want to mention this is to give you again the picture of how three-dimensional your personal brand is as a concept. And even if there are people who have never met you, they will still have an opinion about you, still have a view, a perception of who you are. Now, if we could just skip to the next slide, what I really want you to focus on today and what we're going to be talking about a little bit more is the first two. And the reason is this is where your focus should be, because this is where your actions can really make a difference. I don't want you to stress out too much about other people's perception. Just be open and prepare for the fact that anyone will always have an opinion about you no matter what you do. So don't focus about it. Don't stress on it. Sorry, don't focus on that. Don't stress about it because there's little we can do about it. But where we can focus our attention with purpose is what are we making ourselves known for, and how do we pitch it as something in a narrative that makes our unique skills and experience stand out. Next slide, please. So this is just something, the bottom line or the starting point is this sentence, which I really like, which is know who you are and just be you, because you're the only one who can do that. And you're going to be the best at it, right? Notice that the first word in that sentence is know who you are. And that's where we're going to delve into in the next slide. Thanks, Lynn. So to build your brand, you really need to do a lot of work individually on yourself, meaning know what drives you, know what is important to you as a professional. So today we're going to be talking about branding more under a professional angle. As we said, and as we noticed, there is still overlap between your personal brand and your professional brand. I'll try to give you a couple of examples in this session and in this, let's say, part of the session to give you a bit more a view of what I mean and why these are still related. But we're trying to approach it from a professional standpoint. So some of your values, right? It doesn't matter where we come from, what our walk path is. We all have some values deep down that are really driving us. These are the ones I call core values. There are many ways you can play around with tools to understand what your core values are. I would recommend one that I really like is the Ikigai. It's a really nice way of digging into what are your values, what are your strengths. But there are many others and much simpler ones. The idea and the importance of knowing what your values are, your core values as well as your professional values, means that you know what makes you more susceptible to either conflict, because you will know what are the things that you hold so dear that if anyone touches them or impacts them negatively or comments on them negatively, you know it's going to be a trigger for you, or you know it's going to be something that you will be standing up for. Knowing that can help you channel those conversations into resolution, conflict resolution, or navigating different priorities. The beauty of values is that there is no such thing as a wrong one, right? We all have similar ones, different ones, and there's no one better than the other. It's just a side of us that the more we're aware of, the more we can communicate it to others, and the more we can start that process to become more familiar with who we are. The reason professional values are also there is, again, because we're trying to give that professional cut to this branding discourse. And it's because part of it, like the core values and the professional values, tend to overlap as well. I'll give you a practical example. One of my personal values is balance. I know it's just a word and it's really broad, but that's part of the reason why I like it. Like, I think there is a duality in a lot of things, and it's really important to understand where you sit. And funnily enough, if you think about the answer I gave earlier to the opening question tonight on where do you feel in your career, my answer was other, and basically all of the above depending on the day, because that's how I approach life. I know that I have skills, I know that I have experience, but every day I might come across an individual task that might be new to me, and then I will feel like a beginner altogether. So and see, what I'm trying to show you is how a core value I have influences the way I perceive the world and the way I see myself in that world. So knowledge is power. The more you know about yourself, the better you can communicate it and the better you can brand it. So be sure to play around with those values. Be sure to find a very long list of values, start crossing out the ones that make sense to you, and then narrow it down. It's very helpful in for a number of reasons, and I'll just park that concept there for now. Now, know your why. It's there's been a lot of talk, and there's a very nice book and a talk and videos on YouTube from Simon Sinek, Know Your Why. So I won't delve into that too much. The reason I mention it, and the reason I think it's important, is when you're talking about branding, if you know what you're trying to achieve, right? So what are you branding for? What is your goal? Where are you trying to go with that profession, with that role, with that brand? There will be, again, it can be something that is more tailored to high values that you uphold. It could be, for example, in my case, as I'm branding myself as career coach, some of the values that I really believe in and drive the rationale for my business are inclusivity and diversity, because I'm really like the topic of diversity and inclusion is really dear to me. So that has become, in a way, part of my branding, part of the narrative that I have for my branding and myself. So, and the reason is, part of my why is help people find their own strengths in their career as they build their career, as they build their brand. So see how these things, these are all like pieces of the puzzle that slowly compose a picture of who are you branding yourself as. Next slide, please. So know who you are, know what your values are, know what's your purpose, what's your mission, but also really know what your skills are. So what are you bringing to the table? These things, that your values and your experience and your skills may have some, some commonalities, may have some areas of overlap as well. That's why it's important to start with the values, because those are really big umbrellas that are part of your everyday life, or should be part of your everyday life if they are your core values or your professional values. The reason I make this distinguish between the core values and the professional values is simply because there might be some parts of you, aspects of your character or values that you demonstrate at work and only at work that are not part of your everyday life, and vice versa. There will be parts or values or aspects of your personality that are only or more prominent outside of work for a million reasons. Just to say, very similarly, there will be skills and experiences that come from your past experience, your career history, that you really need to break down, slice, and dice to understand what is in your pocket. Like, what do you have to put on the table? This sounds like a simple exercise, but it's probably one of the most complicated ones. And it's really, really valuable, specifically when you're thinking about changing job or making a sideways movement within your career, within your company or your organization, or jumping ship to a new organization. That's the moment where you really want to be aware of what you bring to the table. When you are rebranding yourself and making, in this case, like a diagonal move of some kind or lateral movement, so you're changing career, and again, rebranding yourself with under a different light, it's really important to do this exercise. Dig into your old experience, break it apart as much as you can, and then build it back up again. And the tool to do it, especially that rebuilding together, is the last point I have on this slide, which is coming up with your narrative, understanding, knowing your narrative, and owning it. Why is this so important? We're all unique, and that's for sure, in terms of even skills and experience. But even if you had two people who had the exact same career path, exact same from day one, from studies, university, same degrees, same role, same organization, same level of experience, same projects, they will still be different people, right? And if they advertise themselves, or they should be. So in order to brand themselves as someone, as an individual, as someone special, it's not just about listing your experience, but it's about understanding and slicing that experience and mixing it up with who you are and how you have experienced that and what have you got out of that experience. We all learn different things because we have all different values, because we are different people. We might retain or give preference to some learnings as opposed to others. We might have preference to do certain tasks as opposed to others. So even those two hypothetical people coming from the exact same career path will be different and can differentiate themselves from one another by building up their narrative. It could be, why did you choose to study that? That might be different. Or what was your favorite activity in that first role you had? Or what was the biggest success you had in that project you've been involved in? That's where the differences and the uniqueness comes from. Because just like brand is an open and broad topic, and it's as varied and as complex as each individual is, so is the idea of success, or it should be, because everyone will experience it differently. So I'm blending a little bit now into, how you brand yourself on your CV, when you put your hands on your CV to jump to a new job or look for a new job. There's a lot of it that comes into play, but the basis is the same. Understand your experience, slice it down, understand your unique skills, pitch them with a narrative that is your own. Next slide, please. So if we want to boil it down, thinking about, a hypothetical situation where you're trying to rebrand yourself for a different career, know yourself, know what you want to be known for, and then start this lovely cycle of, if you don't know what your brand is, as an exercise tomorrow or this week or this weekend, if you want to figure out, okay, so what is my brand at the moment? First, know yourself. So before you go out and ask people, that's why I wanted to put the know yourself first. Just make sure that you have that solid ground of how would you like to be branding yourself? Like, what do you want to be known for? What is important to you? Have that knowledge, keep it in your pocket. Then go and ask other people. Ask people who are close to you. Like, we're no Gordon Ramsay, we're no Emma Watson. So we need to start from people we actually know. That's the best starting point. people who really know you, you have real interaction with, co-workers, peers, friends. Ultimately, ask Google. That's a good way of understanding beyond my circle of knowledge, beyond my actual real people connections. How am I perceived online? And that's, let's say, the last part of today. I want to focus a little bit more on how to brand yourself online. But the tool of, the Google search is still really valid. Sometimes things will come up that either are non-representative or just a very small side, or you might have won an award for wearing the biggest hat at a carnival competition, which is great, but it tells us nothing about maybe what you want to be known for. It might be a fun thing, it might be a fun fact, it might be a horrible thing. It might be something you don't want to be known for. So just be mindful that the internet is a very big bucket where everything goes. Be very mindful of privacy settings on your social media, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. But just have the exploration and understand, how do I want to be perceived? Who am I? Have that knowledge, then ask around in your circle and check, how far apart are these two? How am I being perceived? What am I known for? What am I the go-to person for something? And what is that something? That might be more of a question for coworkers if you're thinking about rebranding yourself professionally. Your mom, your friends, your family, they might give you different answers that might help you figure out more what your core values are. But coworkers and clients are the right people to have the conversation if you have that opportunity to understand, what am I known for? What would you come to me for? Have that check, and then obviously realign, reinforce as needed, right? And there are many ways we can do that. When we want to realign, obviously just see what's out there, remove what you can. And if for example, it's a habit, or it's a perception that people, close friends and family have of you, could be you are not patient. That's good too. Take that feedback as constructive criticism that can help you get to a better place. So if you want to rebrand yourself as a patient customer manager, you might want to work on that, right? So it's a good way to get free feedback from people who really know you. Next slide, please. Just for fun, what do we think about Emma Watson now? Has anything changed? I wonder. Do we want to play this game again? And in thinking of that picture specifically, there you go. That's great. I see other people are popping in their answers, but for those of you who have already put their answer in, look at this picture. How different is this picture from the one we had before of the same person? And why is that? Like, obviously, I've cheated on this one. I purposefully chose this picture of her representing United Nations women at a big public event. And guess what? We started putting more emphasis on other aspects of her brand, which is her activism, her advocacy for international rights and women rights and human rights, and other aspects. She's still an actress, she's still famous, and she's still from Hollywood. But the point I'm trying to make here is, the things, the places, the names, the organizations you associate yourself with will influence your brand. And the other way around. Like in this case, she's famous, she's a testimonial for these big organizations. So it's more of a 50-50 give and take, right? But when us as individuals pair ourselves with organizations like the UN or a campaign or other brands, these brands influence the way we are perceived. And this is a bit of a, I chose this as a positive example, but there could be negatives as well, right? So just to keep you always thinking, keep you on your toes when it comes to branding, you need to be very conscious and mindful of what you pair your brand with. Next slide, please. So building your brand starts from the right places. Like if you are a part of this BA meetup group, then you're already in the perfect place if you want to advertise or brand yourself as a BA. Obviously, this is it's a good forum that is dedicated to the topic, offers you knowledge, information, networking, and this is the best way to do it informally and in person, like online, in person, beyond your online presence. It's a network, right? So one of the best ways to build your brand is immerse yourself in whatever it is that you want to be an expert of. It could be a forum of peers, it could be formal, informal, it could be networking and collaboration, and it could be something else entirely. That's why I have that last aspect at the bottom of the page. Be the expert in the room where there's none. That's another way of building your brand. Obviously, these two things kind of go, alternate hand in hand. You can't be an expert if you have no experience, but if you have no experience, it's hard to become an expert. So you kind of need to work on both, right? And this is really valid on meetup groups, networking events in person, all sorts. Anything, any forum, any opportunity, any place that can give you an opportunity to learn something and build your brand, do it, jump in it, immerse yourself into it. Next slide, please. Now, because we're talking about branding, professional branding, and we are in 2023, we can't avoid talking about LinkedIn. I think it's a good platform. I think it's probably still today for professionals in most fields, not every field, but most fields, is still the best platform to brand yourself and advertise yourself, find a job, create a network. So it's a really, really valid resource if you want to brand yourself. So I want to dedicate the last few slides just on LinkedIn and a little bit of LinkedIn, let's say, house rules or ground rules to get a nice and tidy profile that suits your purpose and is fit for purpose for your brand. Next slide, please. So I am never going to stress this enough. The first point is keep it professional. Yes, LinkedIn is a social media, but no, it's not like the other social media. So just make sure you really separate these two things. It's not about hiding your personality and it's not about hiding your interests. It's just there are other platforms to share fun stuff or, kittens or whatever it is you like. I support you. I love cats. But LinkedIn is not the right place. So make sure that you keep your online brand targeted, focused on your brand. So unless you are we work at SPCA and cats are your life or your brand, then they shouldn't be in your profile on LinkedIn. Just make sure you keep it tidy. Use common sense when it comes to how much you share and how you share your thoughts. It may sound a bit redundant, but really common sense sometimes is really helpful. It's important to be yourself and be authentic, but also be really mindful of the kind of media you're using. So if you're typing a comment, remember that there is no tone in a written form. So be really mindful of how you're writing, the content you're writing. Ask for help. If you're unsure, the first few times you can ask a peer to review it. I would not advise ChatGPT at this point, probably. But just make sure that that tone is polished the way you want it to be, and pay attention. Like some people have, I've heard in the past of people really eager to build connections really quickly on LinkedIn or any social media, but let's focus on LinkedIn for the time being, and just liking a lot of things without paying too much attention. Sometimes even if it's a page, it's a well-known page or influencer or a person, they might say something that shifts away from their usual consistent messaging, which is fine, but just be mindful of what you're liking, supporting, sharing. Just be really mindful. Read things. Don't just click around blindly. And I'm sure no one in this group does it. Sometimes though it becomes really easy to get into this clicking frenzy of trying to connect with others, like content, share content. Just be really mindful. Do it with purpose. Next slide, please. So again, like, follow, share. What are these for, really? When we're talking about branding on LinkedIn as a platform, the like and the follow buttons are really good to pair yourself, associate yourself with things that, or with organizations or people that go in the same direction as you, right? So these are things that can help you elevate your brand. And I'm not talking about share numbers. It's not necessarily about liking people who are popular or famous. It's about people who share your beliefs, people who share content that you have something to add on to. And here we come to the, let's say, the real piece on building your brand on a platform like LinkedIn. You will start with maybe liking content that is aligned with what you, with your brand, with what you're trying to achieve, with your mission, with your purpose, with your skills, with your area of expertise, whatever it is, with a novelty you might have some opinions about. So you will start with that, and then you interact with comments. And that's where you can build your credibility. And the best tool is to add value to the conversation. Yes, and. So it's great to just, comment, oh, that's a great idea. It's fantastic. But are you really adding value to the conversation? So it's okay if, if you're starting out, you will start with a few likes, you will start with a few comments that are just supportive, and that's great. Over time, to build your credibility, build your brand, elevate your brand, you want to add value, add content, add an opinion, your unique opinion on something. So if someone has already shared their opinion and it's exactly like yours, like the very, very same, fantastic, give them a high five. But chances are that there will be 90% of that you agree with, and then something you can add on. And if that's the case, do so, because you will contribute to the conversation with something useful. I don't want to spend much more time on this. I guess, again, the 3 basic rules are still up there. Hopefully they're stuck in your toolbox. Just keep it professional, use common sense, and measure how much you share of, the balance between your true self and all of you, which is probably, it's quite different. Next slide, please. And this is my favorite one. Declutter your feed. Like sometimes, we get into this clicking frenzy and we end up having a lot of connections that are maybe not real connections either, or we follow a lot of things that happen to fall in our feed that don't serve us well, we don't care about. Just declutter. The unfollow button is your best friend. I chose this picture because it shows you roughly where to find it on LinkedIn. So if you find yourself stuck in a feed where you scroll mindlessly and there's nothing for you there, declutter. Chances are there's a lot of stuff in there that is not helpful for you. So unfollow where you need to. Don't be concerned about it. Don't be worried about it. Don't be scared to do it. And select carefully where you put your attention. Remember that social media in general is basically an attention trap. It's meant to suck the life out of us the most time possible. So our time, our attention is a commodity for these platforms. Be really mindful and selective on where you put your attention and your focus. It can be something that serves you. It can be something that just takes away a lot of your time and energy. So really mindful of that. Next slide, please. Just to wrap it up, because I've been talking for a long time, I want you to really focus on, like, if you need to take away just a couple of things, these are the things I would like you to take away with you tonight. Just make sure you know yourself, you do the legwork to know your values, know your skills, know what you bring to the table, and wrap it into your narrative. Own it. Don't stress about what you can't control, what others think, what your reputation is. Those things will come in good time if you build your brand right in a very authentic way. So just be yourself, because everyone else is taken. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Viola. That's really intense, very practical tips. Especially, there's two things to recognize. I feel really valuable to me, which is talk to the people around you, your colleagues, your friends, and family. This is because sometimes you can't really know the full aspect of yourself, and it's really important to get feedback from others. What do they see? What's their value? What's the value of you to them? And the other thing is declutter. I really like that, because I've been following so many people and like famous celebrity, I mean professional way, not the celebrity in Hollywood, on LinkedIn. But when it comes to the feed, there's so many of them, and I no longer have time to read all of them. And yeah, I think Christmas is coming, break is coming, and it's time to declutter for sure.
That's great.
Now let's come to the question and answer session, which is my favorite because I've seen so many questions already.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Very good ones. Let's start with the first one. How do we effectively balance and tailor our posts for platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn by integrating personal elements into our professional narrative?
That is a fantastic question. And again, the key word on this question is balance. It's difficult, and it will depend on a couple of things in particular. First is the platform you're using. Try to learn more, understand more about the platform you're using. People use different platforms differently. My suggestion is, if you are on LinkedIn, just try and keep it professional, because that's what the original purpose of that platform was, to be a professional network online. So try to stick to the, let's say, the aim and the core of it. Facebook is a lot more blended. Like, there's very different things that happen there, but it tends to have a more informal twist. So if you had to choose between Facebook and LinkedIn, or if you are using both, maybe try and give a more informal twist on your Facebook one, and maybe keep it a bit more professional on LinkedIn. That's just my piece of advice, but it really depends on how you're branding yourself as well. So it's a challenging balance. I hope this answer was helpful, but know your platforms as much as you can. There are very helpful tutorials online, and people sharing their journeys about personal branding or marketing experience on different platforms, and will give different suggestions. General advice is LinkedIn should be more professional. It doesn't mean you cannot integrate aspects of your personal life. That's not the case. But just even if you do, remember you're talking to a potential employer, potentially a new colleague or a new manager. And all of us have different degrees of comfort in sharing our personal life. just be mindful that on LinkedIn, you're talking potentially to a new employer. Whereas Facebook, you can change your privacy settings to just talking to your friends. So be mindful of that.
Right.
I often struggle with sharing my experiences into words. Do you have a simple structure to help people articulate one's strengths and experiences? I don't have a single structure or sentence. It's more the exercise of looking at your past experience with different lenses. This is something that can be done, for example, with a career coach. If you want to do it in detail on your own, what you can do is imagine your old experience, take one of your past experiences, break it down into tasks, break it down into achievements, break it down into actions. How were you contributing as an individual? That's more of a mechanical side of things. So what were you doing? How were you contributing? And then into that, you can find your strengths and build them into your narrative. So I hope this is helping in answering your questions. It's a long process, and it's not an easy one either. I want to make sure that this is clear, especially when you're thinking about rebranding yourself completely and going from one career path to something quite different. The longer the jump and the distance between your starting and landing point, the more you might want to look into the old experiences, break them apart, slice them, dice them, dissect them, and then build them up together again into something new, something different. I always bring up an example. Like I'm a project manager right now. I'm a career coach as well. One of the first jobs I've had was in hospitality, and I spent a summer working as in an ice cream shop. So I always take that as an example, as something that is very, very different from what I do now. But some of the skills that I've learned there, including customer interactions for an extended period of time, because obviously in hospitality you are client facing the entire time, teaches you patience, control, soft skills. This is one way that if I was going from say, for example, a back office role into a more client facing role, including, for example, my project manager experience, I could use to reframe the skills that I've learned through that experience into something helpful for a different job. It's a bit of an extreme example, but that's exactly what this exercise and this knowledge is about. That power. Know your experience, know your story, own your narrative, and then you can convince others.
Great. I'm just a bit conscious about the time, but I think if you guys are free, I'm not sure about Viola, if you have any other appointments afterwards.
No, it's okay. I'm happy to stay a few more minutes and go through the questions.
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely.
There were really, really good questions out there.
Absolutely. Hit me.
Next up, how would you advise for someone to build their brand in industry or field that they want to get into, but have no prior experience or exposure to?
That's an excellent question. And the building block of how do you rebrand yourself into something completely different? The same advice as before, immerse yourself. First bit is if it's a completely different industry, you might want to first look at your learning and your qualifications. You might need to fill the gaps. So if it's sometimes it's enough to do a course or multiple courses rather than a full degree. And if that's the case, make sure you fill the gaps. As you do that, be in the right place. So find the right forums, find the right peers, immerse yourself in that discipline. Are there forums that are informal? For example, I work with a lot of engineers. I am not an engineer, but I'm aware of Engineering New Zealand. Some of their events are free and open to all. Go. That's the best way to get to know engineers. Some events are obviously limited to people who are members or chartered engineers or whatever the barrier might be. That's not for you for now. But find the right, space and environment to immerse yourself in that new environment. create connections, go to networking events. That's probably the best way to start.
Yeah, I guess selling yourself successfully will require you really have the skill of speaking their language. So fully immerse yourself and get your skill crafted.
Absolutely. How to change people's existing impression of us. Unlink Hermione from Emma Watson. That is an excellent question. I guess it depends. Like some things you can unlink. It's probably in the digital area really hard to completely erase a part of your history, just plainly because Google has a very good memory. So there's a lot of stuff up there that you may not be able to remove. Be open to that opportunity, that possibility. Things might still be there that you can't get rid of. Build them into your narrative. Own your story. Own your narrative. If it's something a little bit embarrassing, keep it at the back of your pocket. Make a funny story out of it. It could be something anecdotal that could come up in a job interview. They say, "Oh, actually, I saw you. Like when I Google your name, the first thing that popped up was this huge picture with this crazy hat from a carnival." You could say, "Oh yeah, of course," and just tell them a story. So, and if it's not there, and if you can remove it, remove it. If you can't remove it, just own it. Own it.
Beautiful. Next one. How can we effectively filter out the noise and focus on meaningful advice from those who know us, especially when we don't know who I?
That is an excellent question and a really hard. It's a really hard task to do. I think you use the right words in your question. How do you filter out the noise? The best suggestion I can give you is, remember, the first thing I said is start from get to know yourself. Start from within. Who are you to you? Start with that. What are your values? When you know what's really important to you, then everything else comes as additions. It comes as perception, and that's fine too. The other thing is use statistics. Ask more people. There will always be a few people who, will have anyone will have a partial view of who you are, even you. Ask a lot of people. If everyone gives you the same feedback, maybe there's something there for you to work on. It might be untrue. It might not be reflective of who you are. That's great. You got constructive feedback. Work on it. To reframe that perception, realign that perception. If you get very different feedback, then you might want to start reflecting on that. It could be a signal that you are more adaptable in your way, in the way you interact with people, and you tend to adjust yourself and module yourself a bit more. Some people are more upfront. Some people are more flexible in the way they interact with people. It's good to get that information. But I hear you. It's a confronting process because you might hear a lot of things that either surprise you in a positive or less positive way, but also things that might be quite confronting to hear. So, and that's why I want and I suggest always start from yourself before you go out and ask everybody else. Make sure you know what your strongholds are. What's important to you for real? What's really driving you? If you have an idea of what that is, then you can take it from there. But good question. And yes, it's a tough process.
Right. Next one. What are the common mistakes people make when building their brand? How to avoid them?
Excellent question. I think one of the common mistakes we touched on, and it's when you're too eager to, especially thinking about social media and the use of LinkedIn, too eager to just stretch yourself thin too quickly. It's okay to build your network, and that's great, but build it with purpose and build it with mindful conscious of what you're writing, what you're commenting, what is the content that you're sharing, what is the messaging that you're sharing. So the common mistake is trying to go out and about to meet and connect with everyone, before you have that clarity on what is your brand, who are you, what do you want to share, what do you want to be known for. So answer those questions first. When you have that clear, you can go out and about and connect with a million people, and that's fine, but you have that clarity. So make sure you have that clarity first, and then consistency and clarity in the way you communicate that outwards. Next question.
How do you balance authenticity with professionalism on a personal branding?
And that's a $1 million question, right? And I think the key word there is, again, balance by definition includes the concept of spectrum, right? That there will be different positionings on that spectrum that you might have. In this case, it's like 3 areas. So your personal branding, what's you, really you, and what's your professional, your professionalism. And that's fine. It might change depending on the platform you're on. It might change and depend on the message you're sharing. There is no straight answer. And it will definitely depend on how comfortable you feel sharing about yourself. I don't think there is a one recipe. Everybody's different, and you should do what makes you comfortable. So, and that's the only way you can be yourself. Sharing parts of you with others is part of connecting with others and communicating. But some people share this much, some people share this much. There is no straight answer and there is no recipe. Just do what's comfortable for you, and it can change over time. It doesn't say it's a spectrum, right? It can change. Do what makes you feel comfortable enough to uphold your values. Start with that. And that's why I insist a lot on values. If you start or reconnect with your values, and that's what you include in your comments, in what you're sharing. It might be difficult if you're thinking about a comment or a conversation that is specifically technical, but if it's anything a little bit higher level, you can always bring it down to one of those 2-3 core values you have. It could be, in my case, is, for example, balance. Another one is efficiency, which to me means a lot of things. It means sustainability. It means lack of waste or no waste, whatever. You can frame. I know that that's one of my core values, and I know that I have something to say about it because I want to uphold that value and share with others. So how do you balance it all? Do what makes you feel comfortable, and do something, share things that you truly believe. Don't share, just be really authentic. Share things you really believe in. Sometimes it's hard and confronting again, and the temptation to go mainstream and just follow what everyone else is saying. It's easier. Just be yourself. It doesn't mean to go against the current every time either. Sometimes a thumbs up, that's all you need. So sorry, I don't have a more direct answer to that. It's a bit of an open-ended question. Hopefully this was helpful. Last question.
When building your personal brand, what would you prioritize first in terms of content to share, such as focus on activities, achievements, and then your ideas?
That's a really good question. And I don't have an answer because it really depends on what is your brand. What is your goal? What is your why? What are you trying to achieve? And what do you want to be known for? Those are the key questions. If you have answers to those, then you can play around with it. What do you want to be known for? Is it something that is it something innovative? Is it something new? Do you want to be known as an innovator? Then off you go, share your ideas. Do you want to build, are you focusing more on building your credibility, your eminence, your brand in terms of your experience? Then share your achievements, share your activities. Sometimes you can blend them, but it's probably best if you focus on one or each. It will depend on what are you interacting with. Can you add to the conversation? You can add reminiscing an example or an achievement or an episode where something comes out as an achievement or as an activity that you have done. as you add value. So it's not just, oh, because I've done this many things, I'm so great, which is fantastic, but put it in context, make it helpful. Put yourself into the reader's shoes. Why do I care about what you've done, right? So either you're sharing something, could be something you've learned, it could be a challenge, or it could be something that was really funny or really unexpected, whatever it is. Just try to make it interesting, because you're still sharing content, right? So focus on whatever serves your brand in that moment. If you're still at the beginning, early stage, you probably want to share more. I wouldn't say, actually, sorry, I was going to say maybe you want to share more of your activities, but not necessarily. You could start with a lot of ideas. You might be new to an industry, and that's why you have a lot of interesting ideas, because you're bringing something from a different experience. So there is no one recipe. Sorry.
Yeah, I really hard questions. Thank you for your answers.
Really good questions.
I feel like this topic is actually Viola has provided us a very good structure and a framework, but it's actually really complicated topic, and it involves you sit down quietly, think about your values to start with, and ask questions from people around you, and really align the whole of things inside and outside, the past and the future. So it's absolutely quite a complicated, quite a big job to do. And yeah, I maybe coming with holidays coming up, and maybe can have a kind of some like a New Year resolution thing, and you know, put yourself block some of your time, and really to think about it and do it as a project. And I guess for people who really wanted to transit into a new career and wanted to have have a new branding, like a way to brand yourself in a more urgent way, then maybe it's helpful to find a career coach yourself and to really sit down and to walk like with the external help to walk you through each step. Maybe that will be more helpful. There are so many options, and I'm pretty sure there will be one fit for you.
And I'll just leave you with one last tip. If you're really, in the rush to rebrand yourself, do the legwork. Like, spend the time before you put yourself out there to do your CV, to have that clarity. First, have that clarity. When you have that clarity, everything else is easier. Putting your CV together becomes easier because you know what you're looking for and what you want to share. Sharing content online becomes easier because you know what your values are, what your goal is. You know where you're going with that. So do the legwork. It takes a lot of time at the beginning, but it pays back. It's a good investment of that time. So, and ask for help if you need it to do it. It's a very big job.
Cool. Thank you again for your time and all the advice. And I think now it's a wrap for 2023. We've been having so many events and different topics, and you can find it out from our YouTube channel. And I hope our loyal followers that come along all the time, and also the new audience as well, can take away something from all the different talks from our amazing guest speakers. And a very special thank you, Viola, for tonight. And a special thank you to Sophie, the founder of the BA Career Meetup. Without her, we wouldn't be here and sitting down together and share and learn. Sophie, do you like to say something? This is the last one.
Thank you, Ling, and thank you, Viola, for this very inspirational and insightful talk tonight. Definitely give us a lot of things to think about, and I will just keep it short because I'm aware of the time. So I would love to appreciate all of you, the participation in our meetup and support to us, to grow us as a community with love, support, and all the inspirations. And I'm very happy to announce that we have passed 1,000 members within 10 months after we created this meetup, and we hope to grow with us together like in New Year. So we will have more initiatives next year, and hopefully we can organize more in-person events since March, I think. We got some plans in the background running, so hopefully we can launch it like successfully in the next year, and hope to see you guys in person next year. Thank you so much. Me.
Looking forward to it. Great. Our lovely host, co-host Caroline will put the recording up in